What's going on, everybody? Computer Guy Chris here with another episode on Beginner's Python. Python is an extremely powerful programming language that can be used for everything from data science to web development and much, much more. But before getting to that, you have to master the basics. In the last episode, we talked about while loops, and in this episode, we're going to talk about if, elif, and else statements. The if statement is used to cause an action if a certain criteria is met. And I've got a couple examples here on the desktop, so let's take a look. The first example I have is just a simple if statement, kind of the most simple example. And what we have is x is equal to 5. So we have a variable x that we're setting equal to 5. And then we say if x is equal to 5, print x is 5. So what it's going to do is it's going to run through, it's going to look for this variable x, which we have up here, is equal to 5, and it's going to output that x is equal to 5 because this criteria is met. And let's just take a look at that. So we do if.py, and there we go, x is equal to 5. So x is 5. So it ran through this statement and it said, okay, we have this variable x, which is equal to 5. X is equal to 5, so it's going to print out that statement. Now, if we change this over here to x is 4, so now x is not equal to 5, if we rerun that script, there we go. It's not going to output anything because it's not going to run through that if statement. So this is super, super powerful, right? We can use this in our code to say, if this thing is happening in our code, do this bunch of actions over here. And if this other thing is happening in our code, do this other bunch of options. We can do it for user inputs. So if the user inputs a name that has less than 5 letters, do this. If it's more than 5 letters, do that. So we have so many options with this. It's really, really powerful built-in functionality. So now let's take a look at just another example, similar example, kind of just, again, the basics. And here we have, again, an if statement. But instead of just checking if x is equal to 5, we're checking if x is greater than 3. So again, we're setting a variable x equal to 5, checking if it's greater than 3. Then we're going to print that x is greater than 3 if x is greater than 3. And it's going to do just the same as we did before. Since 5 is clearly greater than 3, it's going to print out x is greater than 3. Great. But it kind of shows how powerful this function can be. So you're not limited to just saying, is this thing equal to this other thing? You can use greater than, you can use less than, you can use equal to, you can use not equal to. You can use any functionality that's within the Python library. So you can do things like, if you had a list of things, you could say, is this item within the list? So if this item is within the list, do this thing. Maybe somebody's putting in a grocery list and they say they want apples and cheese and bread. And you could say, if the person asks for milk, say we are out of milk. But because that list doesn't have milk in it, the program won't output that you're out of milk. So it's super, super powerful. Now, let's take a look at this other function, if not. And it's just going to show us a little bit more of how dynamic and powerful this if statement is. So here we have x is equal to 5, just as before, but now we have if x is not equal to 3. So since 5 is clearly not equal to 3, this functionality is going to run, and it's going to print out that x is not 3. So right now, we can check if things are equal to each other. We can check if things are greater than or less than each other. We can check if things are not equal to each other. And of course, it's just going to print out that 5 is not equal to 3, so x is not equal to 3. Of course, we knew that, but it just kind of shows how many options we had. And like I said, you can check if things are within a dictionary. You can check if things are within a list. You can check things in user inputs. You can check so many things with this. It's a really, really powerful functionality that's built within Python. So now we have if, elif statements. Now we know what an if is, right? It's going to check if a criteria is met and utilize the code under it if it's met. But what's an elif statement? Okay, so here we have x is equal to 5 if x equals 4. So if x is 4, which it's not, right, then print x is 4. Elif x is equal to 5, print x is 5. So what this is going to do is it's going to start off, set the variable x equal to 5, Then it's going to say, if x is equal to 4, print this statement. But we're just going to skip that because x is not equal to 4. But then it's going to go to the next line and check, well, what about if x is equal to 5? So now we're not limited to just one checking. We can say if this thing, or if this thing, or if this thing, and we can have different functionality within the code if any of those criteria are met. So let's take a look at this and see what it's going to output. There we go, x is equal to 5. So it's not super surprising what it outputs because we know that we set x equal to 5, but the possibilities that this brings into code is really, really cool, right? Because now we can have a number of if-elif statements, and it's going to give us a different result based on which code is run. So now let's take a look at else statements. Else statements. Now we saw that a little bit in the last video with the while else statement loop. And what that did in that functionality was it ran through the while loop, and then when the while loop was no longer running, it would go over to the else statement. And this is kind of going to be the same. So what this is going to do is we're going to, again, set x equal to 5, check if x is equal to 4, and it's not. So, right, it's going to skip past that. And since it's not equal to 4, it's going to go to the else statement. So if the if statement is triggered in this situation, it will skip over the else statement. And if the if statement is not triggered, it will move over to the else statement. So the only thing that we can conclude is it's not equal to 4, right? So the only thing we can say is x is not equal to 4. And let's run this and show what it outputs. There it goes, yeah, x is not equal to 4, right? So it went over here to the if statement. It checked it. It was x is not equal to 4, so it skipped past that and went over to the else statement and then just printed out that. So again, just another added little key into what we can use this if, elif, else statements for. And now here we're going to have a combination of all three. We're going to have an if statement. So if x is equal to 4, elif x is equal to 6, else x is not equal to 4 or 6. So an important thing to note here is when we use if statements, we have to give a criteria. So if this thing is true. When we use elif statements, we also have to give a criteria. Elif, this other thing is true. So first it's going to check the if statement, then it'll check the elif statement, and then if none of those things happen, we can have an else statement. We don't have to, but we can. And the else statement doesn't have any criteria in it. And the reason for it's kind of the bucket that catches everything if no other bucket caught it. So if the if statement was true, it would skip over the else. If the elif statement was true, it would skip over the else. But since none of those other things are true, the else is the only thing that's left, and it'll just take whatever is left. Now let's see what this outputs. There we go. So x is not 4 or 6. So now we have this ability to go through and say if x is equal to 4, elif x is equal to 6, else do this other thing. Right? So very, very powerful. Now lastly, let's just take a look at kind of how this can all be put together with nested if statements. Now what nested means is you have one within the other. And what it means for if statements is you can have, let's say you have two variables, x and y, x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 4. You say if x is equal to 5, which it is, so now it's going to start running this functionality. And then you can have another if statement, if else statement, or if elif else statement, all within that if statement. So you have so many times where you can check if this thing is true. You can check different criteria, and you can have different functionality run if each one of those statements is true or false. And so what this is going to do is since x is equal to 5, it'll run this first block. It'll go down into here, print out x is equal to 5, then it'll check if y is less than x. Y is 4 and x is 5, so it is, and it'll print out y is less than x. So let's just see that. So x is equal to 5 and y is less than, it should be is less than x. So just another really cool way of combining these different kind of building blocks together to get something really cool. Now one last thing that I do want to show you that I didn't make a function for, but I'll show you right here, I'll move up here, is you can add criteria. So you don't have to have just one. You can use different conjunction functions. So if we have, let's add another variable y. So we can say if x is equal to 5, which is true, then we can do or, let's say y is equal to 3. So of course this is going to run x is equal to, x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 5. So if x is equal to 4, well that's not true, or let's say y is equal to 5. Now it's going to say, let's change this to either x or y is 5. And let's do that. And there it goes. Either x or y is 5. So in this way, we can have multiple criteria. Another thing we could do is we could use the and. So if x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 5, then we say both x and y are 5. But we know this is not going to run because here we have x is equal to 4. So let's just show that. There we go, we get nothing. So again, super powerful functionality built within Python. Comes in handy a ton in code. This or the for loop is probably what I use most when I'm programming in Python. So it's just super valuable when you're just starting to learn that this function is there, and this is kind of how you can check different inputs or check different variables. So I hope this video was useful to all of you guys, especially you who are starting to learn Python and are just kind of starting to learn the functionality within it. If you have any questions, please leave that in the comment section. Please like this video if you've been enjoying this series to let me know and to let YouTube know as well. And as always, thanks and subscribe.